People think having no friends means something is wrong with you. But what if the truth is darker than that? What if you don't avoid people, you avoid the feeling of needing them? Because needing people means risk. It means hoping. It means depending. It means giving someone the power to disappoint you. And maybe that's the part you learn to avoid. From the outside, your life looks normal. You go through your day. You handle your responsibilities. You talk when needed. You smile at the right moments. You don't look broken. You just look distant. And after a while, even that distance starts to feel natural. Not because you don't want connection, but because connection stopped feeling safe. Maybe you were not always like this. Maybe there was a time when you wanted people close, when you cared more, when you reached out without overthinking. But something changed. Not suddenly, slowly. You notice people don't always show up the way you do. You noticed your effort is not always returned. You notice that the more you expect, the more you get disappointed. So you adjusted. You stopped reaching first. You stopped opening up fully. You stopped expecting people to stay. And without realizing it, you didn't just become alone. You became someone who believes being alone is better. That's the shift most people don't notice. At some point, being alone stopped being something that happened to you and became something you started believing about yourself. I'm better alone. I don't need anyone. People are too much. These don't start as truths. They start as protection. Because your brain has one main job: keep you safe from pain. And emotional pain is something it takes seriously. If you've ever felt ignored, replaced, misunderstood, or like you were too much for someone, your mind doesn't forget that. It stores it, and it builds a rule: avoid what hurts. So now, when connection starts to form, your brain doesn't just see a person. It sees a possibility of loss. That's why something inside you pulls back. Not because you don't care, but because caring feels dangerous. This is why people with no friends are often misunderstood. They are not cold. They are not emotionless. They are careful. Psychologist John Bowlby explained that early emotional experiences shape how we connect later in life. If closeness once felt unstable or painful, your mind may still expect that pattern to repeat. So you live in a quiet contradiction. You want connection, but you don't trust it. You want someone to stay, but you are already preparing for them to leave. And instead of going through that cycle again, you step back before it even begins. From the outside, this looks like independence, but inside, it feels like control. Control over disappointment, control over expectations, control over how much you allow yourself to feel. And for a while, it works. You feel calm. You feel stable. You don't have to deal with emotional ups and downs. But here's where it gets uncomfortable. Some people with no friends are not afraid of people. They are afraid of becoming someone who needs people again. Because needing people once made you feel weak, or unwanted, or invisible. So now your mind tries to protect your identity, not just your emotions. Because this is no longer just about connection. This is about who you believe you are. And here's the deeper layer most people miss. You don't just avoid people, you start building an identity around not needing them. I'm just not a social person. I like being alone. I don't fit in anyway. These statements feel real, but they are often built on past pain, not present truth. And the longer you repeat them, the more they shape your behavior. This is how isolation becomes identity. And once that happens, changing feels uncomfortable. Because now opening up doesn't just feel risky, it feels unnatural. This is why you might hesitate even when someone is kind, even when someone genuinely tries to connect. Not because they did something wrong, but because your system is not used to safety. And this creates one of the most painful experiences. You start wanting connection again, but you don't know how to receive it. And that's where the real struggle begins. Because the problem is not that you can't make friends. It's that you don't fully believe someone would stay, even if you did. That's the hidden belief. And it changes everything. It changes how you respond, how you communicate, how much of yourself you show. You hold back just enough to stay safe. But that same distance also keeps connection from growing. So you end up in a loop. You protect yourself, but you also feel alone. And over time, solitude starts to feel easier than trying. No expectations, no confusion, no emotional risk, just peace. But here's the truth most people don't realize. There's a difference between peace and emotional numbness. Real peace feels light. Isolation feels heavy. Real peace gives you energy. Isolation quietly drains you. And sometimes what feels like I'm okay alone is actually I've learned not to expect more. That's not strength. That's adaptation. And there's nothing wrong with that. You did what you had to do to protect yourself. But protection is not meant to become your permanent state. Because the same walls that kept pain out also keep connection out. And eventually you start feeling that absence. Not loudly, but quietly, in small moments. When you wish you could share something. When you wish someone understood without explanation. When you wish connection felt easy. And that feeling matters. Because it means something inside you still wants connection. It means you didn't lose that part of yourself. You just protected it. And protection can be unlearned, slowly, not by forcing yourself into groups, not by pretending to be someone else, but by allowing small moments of safety, one honest interaction, one person who feels calm, not overwhelming, one space where you don't have to perform, because healing is not about becoming social, it's about becoming safe again, safe to be seen, safe to be understood, safe to exist without fear of being rejected. And that takes time, but it starts with one shift. Instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "What did I learn that made me feel safer alone?" Because when you understand that, you stop blaming yourself, you start understanding yourself. You are not broken. You adapted. You are not unlovable. You became careful with your energy. And maybe you don't have no friends because you are unworthy. Maybe you just haven't met people who feel safe to your nervous system yet. That's a different story, and it leads to a different ending. Because the goal is not to have many friends. The goal is to feel safe with the right ones. And when that happens, connection doesn't feel like effort. It feels like relief. It feels like you don't have to hold yourself back anymore. It feels like you can stay without preparing to leave. And maybe that's what you've been looking for all along. Not people, but safety. Not attention, but understanding. And one day, you will find it. Not because you forced it, but because you finally allowed it. And when that happens, you won't just have friends, you'll have something deeper. A place where you don't feel like you have to protect yourself anymore. A place where being yourself finally feels safe.